Hello and welcome back. So, in this video, we're going to start off by fixing the bridge. I've cleaned it with soap and water and also some anti-rust spray that you can buy in any store for just a couple of bucks. It's absolutely not something that is expensive at all, and you can use it on every guitar and it lasts a long time. So I definitely recommend that you invest in some sort of anti-rust protection for your guitars, especially if you live in a climate that can be hard on your electronic devices and your hardware parts. But the thing was that I was just gonna assemble it again after cleaning it. But then I noticed this on the block that I was going to repurpose, and I was going to show you that you can actually use these. But if you look really closely, and I hope I can show you this on the camera, it's actually falling apart. I don't know if you can see. It's like almost like as if it's made out of sand. Here you can see how easily I just poke with a metal spike at it and it just falls apart. And I don't know if that has to do with the quality of the guitar when it was made or the abuse it's been through. But I don't feel there is any point in putting this back into the guitar. This is a part that is going to have to be replaced really soon, and I'm going to have to take the entire guitar apart again. Well, not exactly the entire guitar, but I'm going to have to do a lot of that to get to this part. And so it feels like it's another one of those steps that I can just do now and replace it with something that is of better quality and that will last longer and that hasn't been damaged beforehand. So I've said that I wasn't going to switch any parts out unless I actually really had to, and I feel like this is one of those things that I just have to do. This is not a very high quality thing for the guitar to have, and this particular part is also a bad one. So what I did was that I ordered a new one that I have over here. And the reason why I only bought a new block was because I could obviously have switched out the entire bridge for a totally new system that was higher quality. But I felt like, since I said I wasn't going to actually switch anything out, I feel like the lesser evil of the two is to just switch out the block. Obviously, if you don't have these problems, you can just switch out the entire thing, or you can just not switch anything out. You decide yourself. It's the same thing with the other videos. Everything I've shown you, you can take just the steps that you think you need or that you think will be good for you and apply them. You don't have to do everything that I show you. You can just take the parts of the videos that you enjoy. But this one will be really easy. All we really need to do is unscrew these and then put this one over and screw it in. And so we're going to do that now. And now we just take the actual bridge and put it on the trem block, and we just take our screws and we put them through. Then we screw them down, but we don't tighten them too much because we need to be able to adjust things so that every screw gets in. Okay, so I screwed them in and I realized something that is not right, and that is the arm trem. the arm for the tremolo isn't really, it doesn't fit, which is very strange because I ordered this to fit this particular bridge. I looked at this company's page and I figured out which one it was supposed to be, but never mind. I'm not going to order a new one because that's going to take too long. It already took way too long to get this one. So what I do is that I'm just going to drill this out. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm taking a washer that is the same size, and then I'm taking a pen and I'm just making sure it has the same size, and then I'm pushing it over until it aligns with the hole that is on the underside. And then I can color that in. And then I just stain the lines a bit to make sure it looks neat. It doesn't have to be perfect in this particular step because it's going to look better once you actually use a Dremel to carve it out. And the reason why I use a Dremel to carve it out is because if I try to put a drill bit there, it will wander into the hole. So what I have to do is basically just take a Dremel like this, diamond cutter, and just carve it out. But first I have to unscrew this trim again, and then we can start cutting into it. When doing this sort of work, don't forget to wear ear protection and eye protection, because you don't want to get metal in your eyes. It's not a fun thing, I promise you. And so, now we've fixed that. It doesn't look perfect, but at least we're going to be able to use the tremolo arm with this block, and we're also going to, like, no one is ever really going to look that closely. It's going to be one of those weird things that you know about your guitar but that no one else does. And if you want to, you could put like a sticker or something weird over it, or put some metal putty to cover up the old hole. So now we only have to like put everything back together with the new block. And it's gonna be an awesome guitar in the end. And this is obviously not something I would recommend. I would recommend that you maybe actually contact the sellers and, you know, get it back. But since I'm on this schedule where I have to get this done, and I have other things to do, I don't like to wait that long for it the new one to arrive, and I don't want to go through the hassle of doing all that work, calling people and stuff like that. And also, it took a long time for it to get, and maybe that has to do with COVID or something, but I'd rather just put this back together the way it is now and be done with it. But normally you would probably contact the seller of this block and say, hey, why doesn't it fit? But that doesn't matter. It's a cosmetic thing that I don't really care about. So that's what you should do. Okay, so the next step is basically screwing every part back together. I have some gunk left on my screws that are right here. I don't know if you can see that, but they look a bit dull and dirty. and so I put them in a Scotch pad like this, and I just screw on them with a screwdriver because it's easier to move the big handle, and that lets me clean them up. You can also take the screw and rub it back and forth over the pad. And just go back and forth. You only have to do this for a couple of minutes. Obviously, you can use some sort of acids to remove the rust and things like that, but I don't feel like it's necessary. If you've put the anti-rust on, they're not gonna get dirtier. So here's the screw before and after. I hope you can see that there is a lot of difference. So I'm just gonna continue, and I'm going to clean all of these screws, and then we'll be back when it's time to actually put them in the guitar again. Okay, so now it's time to put them back, and all I have to do is take a screw and put it in the hole on the back, and then put a spring on the other side, and then take the saddle on the other side and screw it into it. And I like to go like something like that to begin with. Of course, once you set the intonation for the guitar, you're going to move the saddle back and forth by adjusting this screw, but that's not yet. You still have to get this done first. And there it is. Looks almost brand new. Except if you look really closely though. Haha. Okay, so the next step is to take care of the tuners. Now, we all know, and it's quite obvious, that upgrading the tuners to higher quality tuners is always a better option. But that would add price to the guitar, and you don't necessarily have to. But what you can do is you can clean them up, and then you can fix them, because they are a bit loose at the moment right now. So you can take these tuners that are a bit on the cheaper side, let's call them that, and make them better, like this one right here. It's a lot more sturdy than the other ones. Now obviously I'm going to show you one tuner, but I do this to all of them. The first thing is I take a tight grip like this, and I make sure that the tuner can't move, and then I tighten the screw that is on top of the head, because if you don't hold it tightly, the head is just going to want to spin when you tighten the screw, and you'll not actually get it any tighter. The next thing that I do to make these run a little bit smoother is I take thin synthetic oil, which is something that is usually used for bikes and stuff like that, and I put some and let it drip into it. Now I go in the upper corner where the tuner pillar that is for the string and where the body that holds the gears sit. And then I just hold it firmly in my hand and I turn it around a couple of times, and as I turn it, the oil seeps in. This can take a while, so let it just, after you've turned it a couple of times, maybe 30 times or something, just put it down and let it sit and let the oil seep in. This is something that isn't very expensive, but can really add value to your tuners, because you will definitely notice a difference. And then I just set the tuners aside and I have them sitting upright like this until I'm going to put them into the guitar, because if you put them on the side you're going to start having the oil run out, which is of course not ideal. So there they are now. Now some of you might say, well, won't the oil just run out when it's on the headstock and, you know, get into the wood or something like that? And my answer is no, because we're gonna secure the tuners with these afterwards, that I hope you can see that I'm holding, which basically goes into these grooves where we put the oil, so you don't really have to worry. I understand if some of you are like, oh, I don't want something weird in my tuners, but they are basically just gears, and gears needs to be lubricated. And the fact that it's a car or a clock or a guitar, that doesn't really matter, basically, because gears are gears. Obviously, you know, more friction in a car, but never mind that. The tuners are done, and we're going to go on to the next step. So, the next step is to clean the parts and make them ready for being put back into the guitar. I've already cleaned the output jack plate and the back plate for the neck, and they look good and nice, just like they're supposed to. The next thing I'm going to do is actually I'm going to clean this jack. I don't know if you can see it, but it's really dirty. So I'm just going to take a file and I'm going to smooth out some of these and try to clean it up, and I'm going to put some rust removal on, and I'm going to wait. Oh no. Oh. I think I know why this jack didn't work as good as it was supposed to. I just moved this around a bit and I realized that this is very, very loose. I would say that this is... oh, and there it went. Oh, okay, so scratch that part. We're gonna clean this thing and make that nice, and we're just gonna throw this away and get a new jack. It's one of those things that happens, apparently. I'll take a Scotch-Brite pad and I'll just move this back and forth and we'll see what happens. And maybe I'll try to get in... yeah, no, I'm sorry, I'm just so confused over the jack that I'm starting to think things. Yeah, just move it back and forth. You can see it go. Rust is really easy to remove. It's when you let the rust go so deep in that it eats away things that is the problem. That's why you should always take care of things as soon as possible, because I mean that's just like 5 strokes and it's already better. But yeah, so all we have to do now is basically put all the parts back on the guitar and then, you know, screw it all back together. So yeah, let's do that. take a tiny bit of leather and I put the strap button on it, and then I take a pencil, I draw around it, take a scissor and I cut it out. I fold it in half, which I probably don't think you can see, but I do, and then I make a tiny little cut in the middle and fold it in half the other way around and do another tiny little cut, and then I can poke the screw through that hole like that, and then I unscrew it and I put the screw through, and then I put the piece of leather on the other side and I just screw it tightly into the piece of leather. If you have a hole puncher of some sort, that could make this step easier, and then you have it there and it's on the back of the. You can take a scissor and you can fine tune it a little bit and trim it down so it looks a little bit neater and nicer and more like it's made for this guitar, which I mean obviously it is. Something like that. And that's how you make those little cloth rings on the side, but you make them out of leather, and if you make them out of leather instead, they will last a lot longer. Okay, so we're going to start off by connecting the ground wire that goes from the foil on the back of the cavity to the pot, volume pot. And first off, I'm just tinning the ground wire. And the way I do that is that I'm just putting some solder on it and just let it melt in to it. It's super easy to do, and you can just, do it. And then I take the wire and I hold it up to the pot, and just like all the other black wires on the ground, I put this one, and I just hold it in place for a bit and let the solder melt into the rest, making sure I get a nice and even connection that looks clear and nice and all. And it only takes a second, to do if you heat things up correctly. And then you just take a tiny bit more solder just to push the connections together. And then you just hold it in place, remove the tip, and wait for it to cool down a little bit. You can feel it's cooling down. Then we have the other three wires. We have the one that ground wire to the claw and the two to the output jack. Now this is going to get a little bit fiddly, but don't worry, we'll get through it together. So what I have to do basically is I have to pick up the pickguard, turn it around so it's the right way, then take the one ground wire that is going to the claw and put it through the hole so it goes to the back, and then take the other two wires, it's a white and a black one, and I have to put them through the hole. It's a bit fiddly, especially if they get stuck in something on the inside, but then we pull them through. And then we can just make sure everything lines up correctly. And as you can see, there's some tape sticking out, so we're gonna have to remove that. And so now everything looks neat, and we just have to put the screws back in to make sure everything lines up correctly. We'll just start off by screwing some of the screws that are on opposite sides in place. You just remove a bit of wire, and then you take your solder iron and just apply some to the wire and let it melt into it. And then you heat up the place where it's supposed to sit, which is this little thing that sticks out. Remove the part that is not supposed to be there. And then we just hold this wire in its new place and try to get these. It's a bit fiddly to get in there because things are always in the way, but you can just push down on it, take a bit more solder and get them to melt into each other, and then just remove the soldering iron, hold it in place, wait a couple of seconds for it to harden, and then you can just push the wire back into the cavity so it doesn't stick out in a weird way. Okay, so the last step, and then we're done with the guitar, is that we have to connect the two wires here. Now, this part here goes to this connection here, and that's where you put the black, or also called ground wire. And the white one, or red, or whatever color you have, goes to the other one. It's a super easy to know, and it has to do with the fact that if you look at the cable, it has two pieces, the long sleeve and the little knob at the end, and they get connected here. So all I have to do is basically just I hold the ground wire here and I solder it in place. So first I tin the part, and then I just take a wire and I hold it in place. It's difficult to show you, but it's not that hard to solder, so you probably know how to do it, even if you've never done it before, because it's so easy. And then just put some solder on the other end and put the wire into it. Wait for it to harden like that. And the next thing we have to do is just move it over and put it into this cavity like so. And then take 2 screws and just put screws in. So there it is, all done. Plays beautifully, sounds better. Well, it didn't have a functional sound when I started making it, but you know, better than scratchy, weird, glitchy sound. But anyway, it plays really nice. The neck is super smooth, and everything works really well. The controls and everything. I really like this Paul Reed-Smith Silver Sky thing that I did. I think it's a really interesting thing, so it'll be interesting to see if anyone else tries that out and tell me what you think of that. Now, let's hear how it sounds. I know you've been watching this and you probably want to know how it sounds, because, yeah, I think it sounds different now than it did before. Well, there you have it. I really hope you enjoyed this video and that you let me know what you think. Yeah, it's been fun restoring this guitar. I really like it now. I've always wanted a Sunburst Strat, and for some reason I've never had one, and now I have one and I really like it. But thank you very much for watching. Have an awesome day and keep on playing guitar or any other musical instrument that you love to play, and just make sure you have fun, because that's the most important part. Bye!